And I'd like to call the July 20, 2023 zoning administrator meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. Erica, would you mind announcing staff members present?
Sure. We have our planning manager, Levi Hill, principal planner, Fernanda Roveri, serving as our zoning administrator. We have associate planner, Matthew Buggart, and myself, recording secretary, Barrera.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is the June 15th, 2023 draft minutes. Erica, would you mind reminding the public how to participate during the meeting?
Sure. Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/City of Monterey and Comcast Channel 25. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join the Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. Today's webinar ID is 160-666-5889. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name typed into Zoom. Public commenters will be muted until it is their turn to speak. Please turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised. There is a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting. Please stay within that limit.
Do we have anyone in the public here or online that would like to make a comment on the minutes?
There are 3 attendees online, but there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. I have reviewed the minutes and they look accurate to me, so I will approve the June 15th, 2023 minutes. And now it's time for public comments for items not on today's agenda. So the public may speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any subject which is within the jurisdiction of the zoning administrator and which is not on the agenda. Does anyone in the chambers or online, would anyone like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, thank you. So then I will move on to item number 3. Consider 459 Alvarado Street, use permit application UP 230119 to allow an assembly major small group assembly arcade use with a principally permitted restaurant minor use. Type 40 alcohol beverage control license for beer sales and retail sales minor. Applicant Megan and Sean Livernote, property owner Salcito Land Company, PCD zoning district, commercial general plan designation, exempt from CEQA per Article 19, Section 15301, Class 1. Do we have a staff report?
We do indeed. I will share my screen. My name is Matthew Buggart, and I'm an associate planner with the City of Monterey's Planning Division. Today, we're here to talk about 459 Alvarado Street for a use permit for assembly major, small group assembly use at the zoning administrator hearing July 20th, 2023. Some background on the project. 459 Alvarado Street is located facing Alvarado Street. It's a 2-story building with commercial land use general plan designation. The zoning is planned community downtown, so it's subject to the downtown specific plan. The proposed use is for assembly major, small group specifically, and it would be a 1980s themed arcade. There is a principally, the retail and restaurant minor uses are principally permitted uses for the site. And it is specifically the assembly major use, which requires the use permit. They are anticipating obtaining a type 40 ABC license to sell beer on site. And the venue would be open to public or small private events for all ages. The operating hours of the establishment would be from noon to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and noon to 10 p.m. Fridays through Sunday on the weekends. It's anticipated to have 2 employees, and they would post the rules of the arcade and have security cameras for security measures. The employees would be required to complete ABC training for the ABC license. The floor plan of the arcade, as noted, it would be facing Alvarado Street. There would be a front desk inside of the front doors, and the arcades would be set up inside. There'd be a restroom in the back along with rear access as needed. Parking for the use, the downtown specific plan does not require a minimum, does not have a minimum parking requirement for commercial uses. There are multiple existing parking structures that serve the downtown area, and staff and customers would be directed to those parking garages. Required findings of the zoning administrator is that the proposed use is in accord with the objectives of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zone. The general plan land use map designates the site for commercial uses, and the business is consistent with this land use designation. The proposed use, the assembly major use, is permitted in the PCD zone by conditional use permit, which is why we are here today. An additional finding is that the proposed project would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of persons residing or working in or adjacent to the neighborhood of such use, and would not be detrimental to the general welfare of the city. The employees would be required to do ABC training and enforce on-site rules. The downtown area is a mixed-use zone, so while there are some residential uses nearby, it is allowed within the zone and area. Additionally, the business itself would operate within an enclosed building. The adjacent tenants of the building and property are businesses, and nearby areas are zoned for varied uses, as mentioned, including those residential uses that are located in the existing building, but noise is not expected to be heard from outside the commercial space, and the operating hours would end, as stated, during weekdays at around 9 p.m. and weekends around 10 p.m. The final finding is that the proposed use would need to comply with specific conditions as listed in the conditions of approval. There are a few stated within the packet. And with that, staff's recommendation is to approve the use permit with conditions. That concludes staff's presentation. I believe the applicant is also with us in the audience.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. I do have some questions. So the restaurant minor use, are they going to be serving food at the location?
It is my understanding that food and snacks would be served from the front desk area, but the applicant may be able to respond to that more.
Okay. Yeah, I will ask that question of the applicant, when it's their turn. Your presentation included, hours of operation 12 to 9 during weekdays. But then it said Fridays was 12 to 10. So I'm wondering, because that's different than the Exhibit A.
The presentation included hours for Monday to Thursday until 9 p.m. and then Friday through Sunday until 10.
Okay, that's different from the exhibit.
Understood.
But I will ask the applicant what they want to do.
Okay.
Okay. That's it for questions for staff. Would the applicant like to make a presentation? Yes. Yeah, you need to come up to the microphone and state your name, please.
Hello. Hi. This is Sean. My name is Megan, and we are the owners of High Scores. We have another location up in East Bay that we're kind of modeling it after. To speak to the food question, it generally we don't do it. So that part is new to us. But for the Type 40 license, you need to sell some sort of substantial snacks. So while we won't have any kind of kitchen facility or anything like that, it would literally just be prepackaged snacks at the front desk to kind of facilitate that. In terms of hours, our current hours, which we hope to keep similar here, are 12 noon through 9 on the weekends, actually aligning to your presentation. So 12 to 10 on Fridays and Saturdays, and then back to 9 p.m. closing all from Sundays through Thursdays.
And just to speak quickly to the food and drink component, that is, we've operated 10 years in the Bay Area with no food or drink. That's going to be a small part of their business. We've had a lot of demand for that, but we're not going to be like a beer bar with arcade games. We're strictly like an arcade that happens to offer 1 or 2 beers and a Coke.
That's not going to be a
snacks,
major focus of our business because we are
We're family friendly.
arcade
We're family friendly first. And
arcade enthusiasts first. And so that's where our focus is. But yeah, we're well known for being a very family friendly place. That's kind of our most of the people that come into our business are, families with school age kids. And then in the evening, it turns into peer-aged, adult peer-age groups that, remember playing the games 40 years ago and, and come in together to play. But yeah, we're celebrating our 10th year in business, actually 13th year in business, but Monterey is new for us. So we're very excited to be here. You guys have any specific questions?
So the staff report includes a condition that any expansion of hours shall require a use permit amendment. So I just want to be very clear about the hours that you want.
Yeah.
And if you want 11 p.m., just make sure that you say that now, because
Okay, yes.
if you, because then an amendment later would require another public
may I ask
hearing.
just a quick question based on that, though, is if we say 11 now, just to potentially use it, can we still stick to the script on our 10 o'clock and not choose to?
Yes.
Okay.
Can.
Yeah. So then if there's an opportunity to amend that, we'd love to have that flexibility, but we'll work within whatever you guys will allow us to do.
Yeah, I'm just,
But we prefer on the weekends, at least to Fridays and Saturday nights till 11.
okay. So we can amend that. And then just on Fridays and Saturday nights.
Yeah, I think so,
Okay.
right? But
Yeah,
it's like an early kind of street anyway, I think. So I think that's the
Yeah,
latest
we'd be
we want to
pleased.
push
We'd
it.
be totally pleased with that. We've never even opened that late in the past, so that would be new for us too.
Yeah. So
And then weekdays noon to 9, or
let's push it to 10
To
if we can
10?
push everything back an hour. That would be if that's not too much work for you. You're good. Yes, that would be great to have that flexibility till 10 during the week. But
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify so that you don't have to come back here if you want longer
appreciate it.
hours.
Yeah,
Definitely
I
appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, now, I would like to open it up for public comments. Erica, would you mind reminding the public how to join through Zoom?
Once again, to join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. Today's webinar ID is 160-666-5889. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name they've typed into Zoom. There are 4 attendees online. However, there are no hands raised.
Okay, do we have anyone in the public who would like to make a public comment here? All right, I will then close public comments. So I agree with staff's recommendation, that this is an appropriate use for the location. And, it would be consistent with the general plan and the downtown specific plan. It would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, because the way that the use is proposed to be operated. And it's compatible with surrounding development. It encourages a diversity of commercial businesses in the downtown. And it's meant to cater for both residents and visitors. And so I will approve the use permit with the approve the use permit, but special condition number 1 needs to be amended to read: hours of operation shall be limited to 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. Friday through Saturday. An expansion of hours shall require a use permit amendment. And then standard condition number 5 needs to be amended to read zoning administrator instead of planning commission. And so with those changes, I approve the use permit. This decision may be appealed within 10 days to the planning commission on forms found in the planning office or online. I would like to thank staff and the applicants. Congratulations. Your project is approved. All right. Next is item number 4. Consider 470 Wave Street use permit application UP 220048 for expansion of an existing residential use. Applicant Chad Brown, owner Aaron Lawler, C2 zoning district, commercial general plan designation, exempt from CEQA per Article 19, Section 15301, Class 1. And Matthew, will you present the staff report?
I will indeed. I will share my screen. The next project is regarding 470 Wave Street for a use permit for the expansion of an existing residential use with an accessory structure for today's zoning administrator hearing, July 20th, 2023. Some background on the site. It is located at 470 Wave Street, and it currently includes a 2-story residential building. The land use designation by the general plan is commercial, and it has a C2 zoning designation, which is community commercial district. Within the C2 zoning district, single family residential and any residential under 3 units requires a use permit. And so since this is an expansion of an existing residential use, it requires a use permit to reflect to come into compliance. The property location is near Cannery Row on Wave Street and is most immediately between Wave Street and the Recreation Trail. It's across the street from some existing commercial uses, including Cannery Row Antiques Mall and the Holiday Inn Express. Immediately north of the property are existing residential homes that are also within the C2 zoning district. Want to go into a little bit of background on the site. The original site in 1912 had a primary dwelling on its own. In 1926, a garage addition was added to the property. And beyond that, in 1962, a second dwelling unit was also included on the property. Since that time, both the accessory dwelling unit both the accessory structure and the dwelling unit have been removed from the site. Here's a photo of those previous structures right about here. And this is the existing residential structure that's on the site. Here's what the site looks like today. They anticipate placing the garage and storage structure on the eastern side of the site. They're calling it a barn for the most part. And there's an existing curb cut at the bottom here, which curves into the site. On the northern part of the site, there's an existing fence that kind of cuts in a little bit, and they're anticipating relocating that closer to the property line. In terms of view of the site, the proposed accessory structure, this is the elevation from Wave Street. Curb cut goes in here. And eastern elevation, it has a second story and a balcony facing towards Cannery Row. From the north, the balcony would overlook towards Cannery Row, and there would be barn doors on the bottom. And finally, from the home itself, the garage door would be here, and entrance and storage would start here with some additional storage space up above. Findings required by the zoning administrator are that the proposed use is in accordance with the objectives of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zone. C2 allows for a variety of permitted uses, including residential uses with a conditional use permit. Since this would be garage and storage that is directly for the site and not for any commercial use, it can fall underneath this umbrella. Additionally, the proposed project must not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of persons residing or working in or adjacent to the neighborhood of such a use. The existing lot used to include an accessory structure, and there are existing residential uses nearby, some of which include their own detached garages as well. This would be complementary to nearby residential properties, would not necessarily reflect a substantial change of use of the site. And finally, the proposed use must comply with any condition as listed in the conditions of approval. This is step one for this project. The expansion of use requires a use permit. They will still be required to go through the architectural review process and to the architectural review committee for any sort of style of the site. And yeah, that will be in the future. With that, that concludes this presentation. Staff's recommendation is to approve the use permit with conditions, with the standard conditions as included in the packet. And I believe the applicant is online if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. I do have some questions for you. The historian's report. Not sure if you have it in front of you, but it's packet page 43. The historian went through the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And she said that for standard 3, there is a old sardine label affixed that would be affixed to the south elevation, and a let's see, a ladder proposed for the west elevation. And she said if these 2 elements are removed from the plans, then the project will be consistent with standard 3. Do you know if these elements have been removed?
Both elements have been removed. When the historian reviewed plans, it was on a former version of the plans, and the most updated plans that are included in the packet do not reflect the sign and do not reflect the ladder. And that request / requirement has been included.
Okay. The resolution, which is, let me get to it. Packet page 29. The resolution includes special conditions of approval regarding archaeological findings or archaeological discoveries on the site. However, they do not exactly match the recommendations of the archaeology or of the so they don't match word for word the recommendations of Achesta Archaeological Services, the archaeological report that was prepared. And so I'm wondering, was there a reason that the recommendations were rewarded in the special conditions of approval?
The conditions that are included here have been revised slightly following city attorney input to better align with what the city has done in the past and would like to implement in the future. Regarding the wording here, is there a specific issue that is of concern in terms of something that may have been missed in there?
Well, so the first recommendation is that a cultural resource sensitivity training led by a qualified archaeologist and tribal cultural monitor shall be conducted for all construction personnel prior to any ground disturbing activities. But the condition that made it into the resolution says the archaeological monitor shall provide the training, not the, it excludes the tribal cultural monitor from also providing the training.
Understood. I honestly don't know exactly why on that particular one it was included. I know that their involvement was included in special condition number 3 for being invited to do so. I do not have additional information on that myself.
Okay. But it was reviewed by the city attorney?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, that's it for questions for staff. Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
The applicant is online with their hands raised. Cindy Scarlett. I can allow her, them to speak. I've asked them to unmute.
Hi, this is Cindy Scarlett here. I don't have a presentation at this time. Matthew's done a fine job of presenting the project, but I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. I do not have any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew.
Okay, let's open it up for public comments. Would anyone in the chambers like to make a public comment or anyone online?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, then I will close public comments. And I will go into the resolution. So I agree with staff's recommendation that this project would not be detrimental to the neighborhood or the city in general. It is a single family dwelling, and the proposed structure would be for the use of the single family dwelling. It's not an intensification of use. Although no parking is required for this structure, they are providing a garage, so that would improve the parking situation on Wave Street. And according to the historian's report, the project would meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. And so it wouldn't have an impact on any historic resources. And according to the archaeological report, the included conditions would not cause adverse effects on archaeological resources either. And so I am inclined to approve the project. I do have some changes to the conditions or to the resolution. So for in the resolution, under the whereas statement of the CEQA determination, exception F, I would like attachment 2 to be instead exhibit B. And so where it says architectural historian Margaret E. Clovis, there should be a parenthesis that says exhibit B. And then where it says archaeological assessment prepared for the site by Achasta Archaeological Services, there should be a parenthesis after that that says exhibit C. And then I would also like in that same paragraph, the sentence should be amended to say, following review of the site, no evidence was yielded that significant archaeological resources may be impacted by the proposed project, and standard language related to inadvertent discoveries are added to the project conditions that would avoid any impacts to archaeological resources. And then in the now therefore paragraph, instead of just exhibit A, it should say exhibits A, B, and C. And then standard condition number 1 should include that the applicant shall apply for any architectural review, comma, building and or water permits required for the proposed use as necessary. And with that, with those changes, I approve the use permit. So congratulations. This decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 days on forms found in the planning office and online. So now let's move on to item number 5. Consider 11 Toda Vista use permit application UP 210099 for a retaining wall over 6 feet in height, 9.5 feet proposed, 13 feet with guardrail within the required rear rear and side yard setbacks due to previous landslide. Applicant Jack C. Camp, P.E., Central Coast Civil and Structural Engineering, Inc. Owner Nancy Howe. Residential, single-family, R110 zoning district. Low-density residential general plan land use designation. Exempt from CEQA Article 19, Section 15303, Class 3. Matthew, can you please present the staff report?
I can. I will share my screen. This project is regarding 11 Toda Vista, and it is a use permit for a retaining wall over 6 feet in height, which requires zoning administrative review, July 20th, 2023. Some background on the site. 11 Toda Vista includes a existing 1-story single-family dwelling, and it has a low-density residential land use designation by the general plan. The zoning is R-1-10 for residential single-family. Some background of the proposed project. The zoning ordinance requires a use permit when a retaining wall would be over 6 feet in height, and when it is located within a required setback at a R-zoned lot. The proposed retaining wall would be 9.5 feet tall at its highest point with a 3.5-foot railing for a total height there of 13 feet. The 13 feet is the railing and retaining wall combined. The retaining wall itself would just be 9.5 feet. The wall would span most of the site width at the rear yard, and the retaining wall is proposed to be installed in response to a slide that occurred during the 2019 rain season. So it's actually been a few years. A site survey was prepared for the project, including a topographic map and also a location for where the retaining wall would go, along with the proposed heights. The retaining wall would be placed in the rear yard. It would be smaller along the southernmost edge and reach its highest point about the middle of the wall, slightly more to the right, and would veer up in following the approximate topography of the grade. Findings required of the zoning administrator is that the proposed use is in accord with the objectives of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zone. The general plan land use map designates the site for residential use, and the improvements are consistent with the continued use as residential by providing stability to the hillside, especially following the large slide that occurred in the rear yard. Retaining walls exceeding 6 feet in height are permitted within the R1 zone by conditional use permit, as it's a proposed 9.5-foot wall. That's 3.5 feet above that requirement. Additional findings is that the project would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of persons residing or working in or adjacent to the neighborhood of such use. The proposed retaining wall would provide stability and increase safety of the site. It would be located entirely within the project site lot and would not increase surface water flows to adjacent lots. There's no part of the retaining wall that's proposed off-site. And the wall has been designed by a licensed engineer and requires a building permit following approval by the zoning administrator. An additional finding is that must be made is that the proposed use will comply with any specific condition as listed in the conditions of approval. There are a number of conditions on this project that are recommended to comply with the recommendations of the project biologist and geotechnical engineers that have been involved on this project. And with that, staff's recommendation is to approve the use permit with those previously stated conditions. I believe the applicant is here in the audience with us today. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Matthew. Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Answering questions.
I do not have any questions for the applicant. So now let's open it up for public comments. Would anyone like to make a public comment?
There are no hands raised online.
Thank you. I will close public comments then. I reviewed the staff report and the resolution and I agree with staff's findings that the proposed project is consistent with the general plan and the zoning of this property. The retaining wall would support the continued use of the single-family dwelling and would promote stability of the hillside, thereby making it safer for occupants as well as neighbors. The project would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. It would actually improve public safety. And there would be no impacts to the neighborhood because it would be entirely located on the project site. And as staff said, it was designed by a licensed engineer. It would further limit erosion onto neighboring properties and would not increase surface water flows to adjacent lots. And as stated in the resolution, the applicant is required to follow the conditions of approval, which include the biologist conditions as well as geotechnical conditions. But I do have three changes in the resolution. The first one is the title of the resolution should say approving use permit UP 21-0099 instead of VA. And then standard condition number 3 should end by saying by the planning office and attached hereto as exhibits A, B, and C, except as conditioned herein. Standard condition 4 should say, instead of architectural review committee, should say zoning administrator. And standard condition 6E should say 11th day instead of 10th day. So with those changes, I approve the use permit. Congratulations. This decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 days on forms found in the planning office and online. So again, thank you. And with that, I adjourn the July 2023 zoning administrator meeting at 3:45 p.m.